interesting to think about the role of corporations initially. Initially, the privilege, very important word, another P, the privilege of incorporation was granted selectively to enable activity that benefited the public. Only corporations were allowed to only engage in activities necessary to fulfill their chartered purpose. The idea behind the people who created the brands, our ancestors, was very noble, was incredibly noble, and it was incredibly purposeful. And it was all about people and the community.
A purpose is more compelling than a product. It's difficult to differentiate a product based on its functionality, especially when your market is saturated. In other words, the product itself isn't enough.
A purpose has a couple of roles to play. I think internally it's really important to have a purpose that is a rally cry, that really motivates people that work for a certain organization to get out of bed and understand why they're coming to work. But we need to always be able to apply the consumer lens to that.
I think the concept of purpose really comes to life when you consider the idea of mutual value. So it's like a genuine relationship in the real world, and I think the best analogy for this becomes like a marriage. As a husband, it's not your duty to deliver everything to your wife, and vice versa. It's very much a case of you're there as a team of two, or obviously once you have children it becomes bigger. You're there to create things together.
Purpose seems like it might be something that you say internally to your folks, but maybe it isn't the right external thing that you want people to engage with. So purpose would seem like this is why we exist, and why we exist as a company. And I've worked in organizations where we've had a strong purpose, and it's very, very motivating for people in your organization to say, this is why I get up every day and go to work. But I've seen challenges when we try and make that more consumer-facing, because it doesn't come across as authentic sometimes, because it's not as connected to the brand. So I wonder if a brand promise what you promise to give to a consumer or people, if it was this perfect blend of an emotional connection that people are passionate about, and what your product actually does to help bring those two things together creates the authenticity.
If you put purpose first and you try to communicate your brand purpose, the risk is that you go to a 30-second TV ad or a message that is a little bit full of itself. And if really we're going to put people first, then the question is almost, and that's why I'm contradicting myself, because I believe in brands and I'm a huge brand, marketer, but it's whether we don't need, when we actually want to reconnect with people and do something that's meaningful to them, forget the brand. We need the brand purpose, we need the clarity about what we're trying to do, but start almost our briefs with the people first, and then re-inject the brand as a supporter, as a sponsor, as an enabler. It's not a linear journey, and there are highs and lows, and there are accidents along the way. And yes, there is a little bit of when the tyranny of the quarter comes up, then clearly measuring the purpose is a little bit more difficult. But when you take the example of Tom Shoes, that's why it's very respectful. I'm very respectful for Blake, because fundamentally the business model, embeds purpose in the sales growth. You can't, disconnect the two. And that's what is, to me, is the ultimate goal.
Marketers tend to look at purpose under the angle of basically saving the planet, sort of helping society tackle the big challenge, whether that's climate change or poverty or malnutrition or you name them. Whereas people think about purpose in the first instance as a company doing the right thing with its immediate stakeholders, so with its employees, with its community, with its customers. And I think there's an important learning there. There's clearly, you know, when I was saying earlier, we need to be listening more. I think there's a need to be listening more to what people are expecting, and I think there's still a big gap there. The other thing which struck me is that marketers tend to assimilate purpose with an aspiration which exists mainly in Western markets. And again, that research seems to contradict that. There seems to be evidence that people in Asia, in Latin America, in Africa are extremely keen to be seeing products positioned with purpose, much more than marketers would think. So I think there may be a sense of purpose being the future of marketing, but there is still a huge gap between the understanding of the industry and what people perceive.
The higher purpose, you know, that we are here to do something, to put something back into society, to make the world better, I think is very important. It's what binds a company together, because you're doing something that actually motivates people.
We tend to indeed, you know, make a lot of noise about the importance of purpose, and the reality is it shouldn't even be a conversation. It shouldn't even be a debate. It's because we forgot the importance of doing something meaningful for people, you know, for the planet, for society, that we are actually having this almost artificial debate of what's your purpose. A lot of the brands, a lot of the businesses that today, you know, are big but that were invented 100 years ago were purposeful in nature. They were trying to do something fundamentally useful for society, for the community. That's why they were successful. So we've actually, through the last decades of the 20th century and first decade of the 21st, we've a little bit forgotten, you know, the importance of you know, doing something that basically makes sense, not just selfishly for today, but also for tomorrow and for others and for the generations to come.